Alright, welcome back to, I believe this is the third video. Let's move my head over here. Now, so Oceans and the Law of the Sea Division for Ocean Affairs, and the Law of the Sea. United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea of 10 December 1982. So we did the preamble, and we did part one, introduction. Now we're going to move on to part two, traditional territorial sea and contiguous zone. Yeah, so if you don't know already, my reading ain't all the best. That's partly why I'm doing these videos, is just to practice my reading. I'm wanting to study this stuff anyways, so yeah, we went over this in part one video. We went over this in the second video, and now we're going to click on part two and go over this. Now, this is probably a longer, let's see how long this is, because we might have to break it up. We might be able to fit it all in. We'll see how that goes. So, yeah, so I'm just, I want to study this, so, if this adds any value to you, feel free to watch it, listen. I might go back and re-listen to my videos myself while I'm, at my job working. Anyways, okay, so part two, territorial sea and contiguous zone. I don't know that word, so we're going to go to Google and look it up.
Contiguous.
Contiguous. Sharing a common border. Touching. All right. All righty. And touching zone, or sharing a common border zone. Territorial, sea, and continuous zone. Cool. Section 1, General Provisions. Article 2, Legal Status of a territorial sea of the airspace. So it's interesting. So this is law of the sea, oceans and law of the sea, and yet we talk a little bit about. Here, let's get rid of this because we already did that. So talk about airspace over the territorial sea and of its bed and subsoil. So legal status of the territorial sea of the airspace over the territorial sea. Interesting. The legal status of the territorial sea of the airspace over territorial sea and of its bed and subsoil. The sovereignty of the coastal state extends beyond its land, territory, and international waters, and in the case of an archipelagic, so I'm gonna look up that word. All right, what do we got? I think when it does the, let's see if this does it. Yeah, I want to hear it too, so I know how to pronounce it.
Archipelagic.
Archipelagic of relating to or located in an archipelagical. Examples of archipelagic in a sentence. Let's go back. Archipelagico means a group of islands, including parts of islands, interconnecting waters, and other natural features which are so closely interrelated as such islands, waters, and other natural features form a intrinsic geological, economic, and political entity, or which historically have been regulated as such. So, it means a group of islands. Interesting. Including parts of islands. Okay. Alrighty, so let's go back. The sovereignty of a coastal state extends beyond its land territory and internal waters, and in the case of a multiple islands state, its archipelagic waters to an adjacent belt of sea described as a territorial sea. 2. This sovereignty extends to the airspace over the territorial sea as well as to its bed and subsoil. 3. The sovereignty over the territorial sea is exercised subject, I believe that's exercised, yep, subject to this convention and to other rules of international law. Section 2, limits of the territorial sea. Article 3, breadth of the territorial sea. Is that breadth? Breadth doesn't have a B in it, does it? See, this is tells you what I freaking know.
Breadth.
Breadth. Yeah, that's not breadth. The distance or measurement of side to side of something width. Huh. Interesting. So the width of the territorial sea. Every state has the right to establish the breadth of its territorial sea up to a limit not exceeding 12 nautical miles, measured from baseline determined in accordance with the convention. 12 nautical miles out, sounds like. All right, Article 4. Outer limit of the territorial sea. So we got the outer limit of the territorial sea is the line every point of which is at a distance from the nearest point of the baseline equal to the width of the territorial sea. Article 5. Normal baseline, except where otherwise provided in this convention. I know the word convention. It's an agreement between two or more parties. Anyways, the normal baseline for measuring the width of the territorial sea is the low water line along the coast of marked on large-scale charts officially recognized by the coastal state. Article 6, reefs. In the case of islands situated on atolls or of islands having fringing reefs, the baseline for measuring the breadth of the territorial sea is the seaward low water line of the reef, as shown by the appropriate symbol on charts officially recognized by the coastal state. Article 7. Strait baseline. 1. In localities where the coastline is deeply indented and cut into, or if there is a fringe of islands along the coast in its immediate vicinity, the method of strait baseline joining appropriate points may be employed in drawing the baseline from which the breadth of the territorial sea is measured. Not sure if I understand all that, but we'll sit with that. 2. Where because of the presence of a delta and other natural conditions, the coastline is highly unstable, the appropriate point may be selected along the furthest seaward extent of the low water line, and notwithstanding subsequent regression of the low water line, the strait baseline shall remain effective until changed by the coastal state in accordance with the convention. 3. The drawing of strait baseline must not depart to any appreciable extent from the general direction of the coast. Let's double check. I know what this word is. Bear with me. All you smart guys, I know you know already.
Appreciable.
Appreciable. Large or important enough to be noticed. Cool, I like that word. Appreciable. Appreciable. Must not depart to any appreciable extent from the general direction of the coast. And the sea areas lying within the lines must be sufficiently closely linked to the land dominion to be subject to the regime of internal waters. 4. Strait baseline shall not be drawn to and from low tide elevation unless lighthouses or similar installations which are permanently above sea level have been built on them, or expect in instances where the drawing of baseline to and from such elevations have received general international recognition. 5. Where the method of strait baseline is acceptable under paragraph 1, account may be taken in determining particular baseline of economic interest, peculiar to the region concerned. The reality and the importance of which are clearly evidenced by long use. The system of straight baseline may not be applied by a state in such a manner as to cut off the territorial sea of another state from the high seas or an exclusive economic zone. Article 8. Internal waters. 1. Except as provided in Part 4, waters. Part 4. I guess we're in. This is Article 8, but this is Part 2. Okay. Article 8. So, except as provided in Part 4, waters, which we haven't got to yet, Part 4, waters on the land. Nope, sorry. Waters on the landward side of the baseline of the territorial sea form part of the internal waters of the state. 2. Where the establishment of a straight baseline in accordance with the method set forth in Article 7 has the effect of enclosing as internal waters areas which had not previously been considered as such a right of innocent passage as provided in this convention shall exist in those waters. I gotta be honest, like, I'm reading it, obviously, it's hard for me to, like, really wrap my mind around what is being said and really understanding it, but that's okay. Hopefully it'll come to me later, right? Whatever's needed shall retain and come to me later. Article 9. Mouths of rivers. If a river flows directly into the sea, the baseline shall be a straight line across the mouth of the river between points on the low water line of its banks. Article 10. Bays. 1. This article relates only to bays, the coasts of which belong to a single state. 2. For the purpose of this convention, a bay is a well-marked indentation, I believe, whose penetration is in such proportion to the width of its mouth as to contain landlocked waters and constitute more than a mere curvature of the coast. The indentation that's what it is. Indentation shall not, however, be regarded as a bay unless its area is as large as or larger than that of the semicircle whose diameter is a line drawn across the mouth of that indentation. 3. For the purpose of measurement, the area of an indentation is that laying between the low water mark around the shore of the indentation and a line joining the low water mark of its national entrance points, where because of the presence of islands, an indentation has more than one mouth, the semicircle shall be drawn on a line as long as the sum total of the length of the lines across the different mouse across from the different mouse. Islands within an indentation shall be included as if they were part of the water area of the indentation. 4. If the distance between a low water marks of the natural entrance points of a bay does not exceed 24 nautical miles, 24 nautical miles, a closing line may be drawn between those two low water marks and the and the waters enclosed thereby shall be considered as internal waters. Number 5. Where the distance between the low water marks of the natural entrance point of a bay exceeds 24 nautical miles, a straight baseline of 24 nautical miles shall be drawn within the bay in such a manner as to enclose the maximum area of water that is possible with a line of that length. 6. The foregoing provisions do not apply to so-called historic bays or in any case where the system of straight baseline provided for in Article 7 is applied. Article 11, ports. For the purpose of delimiting I think I know what that word is, but
Delimitating.
Determine the limits of boundaries. Okay. For the purpose of the delimiting the territorial sea, the outermost permanent harbor works which form an integral part of the harbor system are regulated as forming part of the coast. Offshore instructions and article islands shall not be considered as permanent harbor works. Article 12. Roadsteads, which are normally used for the loading, unloading, and anchoring of ships, and which would otherwise be suited wholly or partly outside the outer limit of the territorial sea, are included in the territorial sea. Article 13. Low tide elevations. A low tide elevation is a naturally formed area of land which is surrounded by and above water at low tide but submerged at high tide, where a low tide elevation is situated wholly or partly at a distance not exceeding the breadth of the territorial sea from the mainland or an island. The low water line on the elevation may be used as the baseline for measuring the breadth of the territorial sea. 2. Where a low tide elevation is wholly situated at a distance exceeding the breadth of the territorial sea, from the mainland or an island, it has no territorial sea of its own. Article 4, combination of methods for determining baselines. The coastal state may determine baselines in turn by any of the methods provided for in the foregoing articles to suit different conditions. Article 15, delimitation. Delimitation of the territorial sea between states with opposite or adjacent coasts. Where the coasts of two states are opposite or adjacent to each other, neither of the two states is entitled. Failing agreement between them to the contrary, to extend its territorial sea beyond the median line, every point of which is equidistant. What is that word? Equidistant. Something like that.
Equidistant.
Equal distance. Makes sense. Beyond the median line, every point of which is, I don't know why they just don't say equal distance from the nearest point on the baseline from which the breadth of the territorial sea of each of the two states is measured. The above provision does not apply, however, where it is necessary by reason of historic title or other special circumstances to delimit the territorial sea of the two states in a way which is at variance therewith. Article 16. Charts and lists of geographical coordinates. 1. The baselines for measuring the breadth of the territorial sea determined in accordance with Articles 7, 9, and 10, or the limits derived therefrom, and the lines of delimitation drawn in accordance with Articles 12 and 15 shall be shown on charts of a scale or scales adequate for ascertaining their position. Alternatively, a list of geographical coordinates of points, specifically the geodetic datum, may be substituted. 2. The coastal state shall give due publicity to such charts or lists of geographical coordinates and shall deposit a copy of each such chart or list with the Secretary General of the United Nations. All right. Section 3. Innocent passage in the territorial sea. Subsection A. Rules applicable to all ships. Cool. Alrighty. Article 17. Right of innocent passage. Subject to this convention, ships of all states whether coastal or landlocked, enjoy the right of innocent passage through the territorial sea. Well, that's cool. Article 18, meaning of passage. Cool. 1. Passage means navigation through the territorial sea territorial sea for the purpose of a traversing that sea without entering internal waters or calling at a roadstead or port facility outside internal waters, or B, proceeding to or from internal waters, or a call at such roadstead or port facility. 2. Passage shall be continuous and expeditious. However, passage includes stopping and anchoring, but only in so far as the same are incidental to ordinary navigation or are rendered necessary by force majeure or distress, or for the purpose of rendering assistance to persons, ships, or aircraft in danger or distress. Interesting, I think this is the first time we've seen the word persons in here instead of peoples. So if you're rendering assistance to persons, ships, or aircraft in danger or distress. Article 9, meaning of innocent passage. Article 19, meaning of innocent passage. 1. Passage is innocent so long as it is not prejudicial. I'm having a hard time with that word. Prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of the coastal state. Passage is innocent so long as it is not prejudicial. I'm going to look that word up actually, because I think I know what it means, but let's be sure, because we want innocent passage, right?
Prejudicial.
So prejudice, I suppose. Harmful to someone or something detrimental. So as long as it's not prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of the coastal state, such passage shall take place in conformity with the convention and with other rules of international law. 2. Passage of a foreign ship shall be considered to be prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of the coastal state if in the territorial sea it engages in any of the following activities. A. Any threat or use of force against the sovereignty, territorial integrity, or political independence of the coastal state, or in any other manner in violation of the principles of international law embodied in the Charter of the United Nations. B. Any exercise or practice with weapons of any kind. Any act aimed at collecting information to the prejudice of the defense of security of the coastal state. D. any act of hold on real quick. All right, sorry about that. Okay. Any act of propaganda aimed at affecting the defense or security of the coastal state. E. The launching, landing, or taking on board of any aircraft. Interesting. F. The launching, landing, or taking on board of any military device. G. The loading or unloading of any commodity, currency, or person, not people, person, contrary to the customs. Physical. It's not the regular. I forgot how to pronounce this word. Physical or something.
Fiscal.
Relating to government revenue, especially taxes. Fiscal, immigration or sanctuary laws and regulations of the coastal state. H. Any act of willful or serious pollution contrary to the convention. I. Any fishing activities. Fishing activities. No fishing activities. That's an interesting one. Passage of a foreign ship shall be considered to be prejudicial to the peace, good order, or fishing activities. Interesting. The carrying the carrying out of research or survey activities. K, that was J. This is K. Any act aimed at interfering with any systems of communication or any other facilities or installations of the coastal state. And L. Any other activity not having a direct bearing on passage. Interesting. Okay. Article 20. Submarines and other underwater vehicles. In the territorial sea, submarines and other underwater vehicles are required to navigate on the surface and to show their flag. Article 21. Laws and regulations of the coastal state relating to innocent passage. Number 1. The coastal state may adopt laws and regulations in conformity with the provisions of the Convention and other rules of international law relating to innocent passage through the territorial sea in respect of all or any of the following. We'll read that again. The coastal state may adopt laws and regulations in conformity with the provisions of the Convention and other rules of international law relating to innocent passage through the territorial sea in respect to all or any of the following. Okay. A. The safety of navigation and the regulation of maritime traffic. So, commerce. B. The protection of navigational aids and facilities and other facilities or installations. C. The protection of cables and pipelines. D, the conservation of the living resources of the sea. E, the prevention of infringement of the fisheries laws and regulations of the coastal state. F, the preservation of the environment of the coastal state and the prevention, reduction, and control of population thereof. I'm going to read that again. The prevention of the environment of the coastal state and the prevention, reduction, and control of population thereof. Interesting. G, marine scientific research. Hold on. All right, sorry. G, marine scientific research and hydrographic surveys. H, the prevention of infringement of the customs, physical, which is money, I think, immigration or sanitary laws and regulations of the coastal state. Number 2, such laws and regulations shall not apply to the design, construction, maintaining or equipment of foreign ships unless they are giving effect to generally accepted international rules or standards. 3, the coastal state shall give due publicity to all such laws and regulations. 4, foreign ships exercising the right of innocent passage through the territorial sea shall comply with all such laws and regulations and all generally accepted international regulations relating to the prevention of collisions at sea. Which is like, you really got to know the laws. It's like a lot of stuff to study to know how to follow the laws of the sea. Which is why we're doing this. Anyways, okay. Article 22. Sea lanes and traffic separation schemes in the territorial sea. 1. The coastal state may, where necessary, having regard to the safety of navigation, require foreign ships exercising the right of innocent passage through its territorial sea to use such sea lanes and traffic separation schemes as it may designate or prescribe for the regulation of the passage of ships. 2. In particular, tankers, nuclear-powered ships, and ships carrying nuclear on other inherently dangerous or noxious substances or materials may be required to confine their passage to such sea lines. 3. In the designation of sea lines and the prescription of traffic separation schemes under this article, the coastal state shall take into account the recommendations of the competent international organization, b, any channels customarily used for international navigation, c, the special characteristics of particular ships and channels, and d, the destiny of traffic. Density of traffic. 4. The coastal state shall clearly indicate such sea lines and traffic separation schemes on charts to which due publicity shall be given. Article 23. Foreign nuclear-powered ships and ships carrying nuclear or other inherently dangerous or noxic substance. Let's look that word up. Let's see. Let's hear how it's pronounced.
Noxious.
Noxious, harmful, poisonous, or very unpleasant. Yep. I figured. I wasn't sure though. Alright. Foreign nuclear-powered ships and ships carrying nuclear or other inherently dangerous or noxious substances shall, when exercising the right of innocent passage through the territorial sea, carrying documents and observe special precautionary measures established for such ships by international agreements. Article 24. Duties of the coastal state. 1. The coastal state shall not hamper or shall not hamper the innocent passage of foreign ships through the territorial sea except in accordance with the convention, in particular in the application of this convention or of any laws or regulations adopted in conformity with this convention. The coastal state shall not a. impose requirements on foreign ships which have the practical effect of denying or impairing the right of innocent passage. Coastal state shall not a. impose. I'm just reading it again. Impose impose requirements on foreign ships which have the practical effect of denying or repairing the right of innocent passage, or b. discriminate in form or in fact against the ships of any state or against ships carrying cargo to, from, or on behalf of any state. 2. The coastal state shall give appropriate publicity to any danger to navigation of which it has knowledge within its territorial sea. Article 25. Rights of protection of the coastal state. 1. The coastal state may take the necessary steps in its territorial sea to prevent passage which is not innocent. 2. In the case of ships proceeding to international waters or a call at a port facility outside internal waters, the coastal state also has the right to take the necessary steps to prevent any breach of the conditions in which admission of those ships to internal waters or such a call is subject. Waters or such a call is subject. 3. The coastal state may, without discrimination in form or in fact among foreign ships, suspend temporarily in specified areas of its territorial sea the innocent passage of foreign ships if such suspension is essential for the protection of its security, including weapons exercises. Such suspension shall take effect only after having been duly published. Article 26 changes which may be levied upon foreign ships. 1. No charge may be levied upon foreign ships by reason only of their passage through the territorial sea. 2. Charges may be levied upon a foreign ship passing through the territorial sea as payment only for specific services rendered to the ship. These charges shall be levied without discrimination. Subsection B rules applicable to merchant ships and government ships operated for commercial purposes. Article 27. Criminal jurisdiction on board a foreign ship. The criminal jurisdiction of the coastal state should not be exercised on board a foreign ship passing through the territorial sea to arrest any person, not people, interesting, or to conduct any investigation in connection with any crime committed on board the ship during its passage, save only in the following cases. A. If the consequences of the crime extend to the coastal state. B. If the crime is of a kind to disturb the peace of the country or the good order of the territorial sea. C. If the assistance of the local authorities have been requested by the master of the ship or by a diplomatic agent or consular officer of the flag state, or D. If such measures are necessary for the suppression of illicit traffic or narcotic drugs or psychotropic substances. 2. The above provisions do not affect the right of the coastal state to take any steps authorized by its laws for the purpose of an arrest or investigation on board a foreign ship passing through the territorial sea after leaving internal waters. 3. In the case provided for in paragraph 1 and 2, the coastal state shall, if the master so requests, notify a diplomatic agent or consular officer of the flag state before taking any steps, and shall facilitate contact between such agent or officer and the ship's crew. In case of emergency, this notification may be communicated while the measures are being taken. 4. In consideration whether or in what manner an arrest should be made, the local authorities shall have due regard to the interest of navigation. 5. Except as provided in Part 7, I believe, or with respect to violations of laws and regulations adopted in accordance with Part 5, the coastal state may not take any steps on board a foreign ship passing through the territorial sea to arrest any person or to conduct any investigation in connection with any crime committed before the ship entered the territorial sea. If the ship proceeding from a foreign port is only passing through the territorial sea without entering internal waters. Article 28. Civil jurisdiction in relation to foreign ships. 1. The coastal state should not stop or divert a foreign ship passing through the territorial sea for the purpose of exercising civil jurisdiction in relation to a person on board the ship. 2. The coastal state may not levy execution against or arrest the ship for the purpose of any civil proceedings, save only in respect of obligations or liabilities assumed in incurred by the ship itself in the course or for the purpose of its voyage through the waters of the coastal state. 3. Paragraph 2 is without prejudice to the right of the coastal state, in accordance with its laws, to levy execution against or to assert for the purpose of any civil proceedings a foreign ship lying in the territorial sea or passing through the territorial sea after leaving internal waters. Subsection C, rules applicable to warships and other government ships operated for non-commercial purposes. Article 29, definition of warship. For the purpose of this convention, warship means a ship belonging to the armed forces of a state bearing the external marks distinguishing such ships of its nationality, under the command of an officer duly commissioned by the government of the state and whose name appears in the appropriate service list or its equivalent, and manned by a crew which is under regular armed forces discipline. Article 30. Non-compliance by warship with the laws and regulations of the coastal state. If any warship does not comply with the laws and regulations of the coastal state concerning passage through the territorial sea and disregards any request for compliance therewith which is made to it, the coastal state may require it to leave the territorial sea immediately. Article 31. Responsibility of the flagship for damage caused by a warship or other government ship operated for non-commercial purposes. The flag state shall bear international responsibility for any loss or damage to the coastal state resulting from the non-compliance by a warship or other government ship operated for non-commercial purposes with the laws and regulations of the coastal state concerning passage through the territorial sea, or with the provisions of this convention or other rules of international law. Article 32. Immunities of warship and other government ships operated for non-commercial purposes, which with such expectations as are contained in subsection A and in Article 30 and 31, nothing in this convention affects the immunities of warships and other government ships operated for non-commercial purposes. What? Let me read that again. Immunities of warships and other government ships operated for non-commercial purposes, with such expectations as are contained in subsection A and where's the subsection A? And Articles 30 and 31, which we just read, which Articles 30 is non-compliance by warships in the laws and regulations of the coastal state, and 31 is responsibility of the flagship for damages caused by a warship or other government ship operated for non-commercial purposes. Nothing in this convention affects immunities of warship. Affects immunities of warships and other government ships operated for non-commercial purposes. All right, so Section 4, contiguous zone. Article 33, contiguous zone. In a zone contiguous to its territorial sea, described as the contiguous zone, the coastal state may exercise the control necessary to a prevent infringement of its customs, fiscal, immigration, or sanitary laws and regulations within its territory or territorial sea. B. Punish infringement of the above laws and regulations committed within the territory or territorial sea. 2. The contiguous zone may not extend beyond 24 nautical miles from the baseline from which the breadth of the territorial sea is measured. There we go. That is the end of part 2 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Hope you enjoyed.